guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here. Last week I did a video talking about the Green Hornet Omnibus, which was written by Kevin Smith with art by Phil Hester and Jonathan Lau. And I mentioned in that video that I had a couple more Green Hornet books that I wanted to talk about. And so today I want to talk to you about Green Hornet Year 1, written by Matt Wagner with art by Aaron Campbell. This is actually 2 volumes here. This is a 12-issue miniseries with 6 issues in each volume, and I like this a lot. This is probably my favorite Green Hornet story that I've read. Admittedly, that is a very small selection to choose from, but I like this quite a bit. In my video that I did last week, I mistakenly assumed that all of the Green Hornet stuff from Dynamite Comics was going to be set in the same world as the Kevin Smith Green Hornet, set in the present day. Green Hornet the second, if you will, with Kato's granddaughter, I think, being the new Kato, helping out Green Hornet 2. I thought that everything was going to kind of branch off from that, and so when I saw that Matt Wagner did a Green Hornet Year 1, I assumed it would be a prequel to the Kevin Smith, Phil Hester stuff and the Jonathan Lau run. I assumed it would be a prequel to that set sometime in the 1980s, because that series starts off with the original Green Hornet saying, okay, I'm going to retire now, I've got a baby son, I'm going to be a family man, and they were making references to Indiana Jones, so it was set sometime in the 1980s, making the rest of the series be set in the present day. I was wrong. This stuff is set in the 1930s. Most of it is set in 1938, which is what I prefer. Pulp, two-fisted heroes like the Shadow, the Phantom, Flash Gordon, the Green Hornet, all those guys, I want them to be set in the 1930s. I don't want to see people try and move them into the present day. So I was very happy to see that this was set in the original time period that the Green Hornet radio serial series came out. I really liked that. But I am perplexed that there are at least 2 different versions of the Green Hornet. There's the Kevin Smith stuff, or the stuff that sprang from his screenplay, set in the present day with a female Kato who's the granddaughter, I think, of the original Kato, and then you have something like this that is set in the 1930s, the original time period that the Green Hornet was created. Now, I don't mind, because if there's more stuff that is set in this time period, then I would like to read that. And I don't have anything against the idea of creating a Green Hornet dynasty with a second Green Hornet and a second Kato. I don't have anything against that idea. I just didn't like the writing and the execution of that comic book. But I am much more interested in the Green Hornet set in the original time period. So let's talk about the actual story here. It's basically Batman Begins, but the Green Hornet. But since Batman Begins is one of my favorite Batman stories, definitely my favorite Batman movie, but just in Batman in general, one of my favorite Batman stories, I don't mind that this is basically ripping off that movie. And I don't know when it came out, but I'm assuming it came out after Batman Begins. But the premise here, we are jumping back and forth in time. We start off in like 1921. We get to see like 10-year-old Britt Reed talking with his dad, and then 10-year-old Kato in Japan talking with his dad. And then we pretty quickly move into both of their adult lives. We get to see how Kato and Britt meet, which is really cool, and then we see them come back to Chicago, which is where Britt Reed grew up, and then we get to see him decide to become the Green Hornet. It's very similar to Batman Begins, how the first half of that movie is jumping around in time quite a bit. You have Bruce Wayne when he's a little kid, and then you have Bruce Wayne in college, and then Bruce Wayne training in wherever he was with Ra's al Ghul, and then you have when he returns to Gotham. From that point, it pretty much happens in a linear fashion. It does not do that here. Even unto the very last issue, we are still jumping around back in time, but the time periods are a lot closer. It goes from like 4 months ago to present day, which is 1938. So it's still jumping around in time quite a bit, even until the last issue. And I don't think it had to do that as much. I think it could have been kind of like Batman Begins, where it jumps around in time a little bit, because when you read a Green Hornet comic, you buy the first issue, you want to see Green Hornet kicking butt and taking names, and if this was presented all chronologically, it would be like issue 6 before you see any Green Hornet and Kato kicking butt and taking names. So I understand why they do that, but then once you get to a certain point, I kind of felt like, okay, they're just showing this guy explaining this is how the car works, this is how your gas gun works, and I didn't really need a lot of that. But continuing with our Batman Begins comparisons, you have a guy who is friends with Britt's father, who is providing all of his tech, kind of like Lucius Fox was friends with yeah, Thomas Wayne, providing all the tech. He used to work at the company, and then I guess, or the company, his dad ran a newspaper. I should have mentioned that. And Britt inherits the newspaper. This guy building all this stuff used to work at the newspaper, I think. So I missed something. I'm not really sure how this guy who worked at a newspaper, he worked in like the factory part, like the actual printing press part of the newspaper. So he's like a mechanical minded guy, but that doesn't explain how he's able to invent this gas gun that would be like fantastical in this day and age, in the present day, but then he's able to build it in 1938, but that's okay. So I like that Kato, what I've always liked about what very little I know about the Green Hornet, I've always liked that Kato is the one with all the skills, and Britt Reed is the one with the motivation to do this. I like that dynamic. Britt Reed is not the more capable one. He's kind of the hero, and Kato is kind of the sidekick, although this isn't a hero-sidekick thing. This is really more of an even partners thing. I've always viewed them that way. But I like how this arrives at that. Kato is clearly the more skilled of the two. There's one scene, I think, in Volume 2, where the Q-Branch guy, he says, okay, we've got this tracker here. We're going to put it in your shoe, Britt, and that way if you ever get kidnapped, then Kato will be able to go to the car and he'll be able to track you down. And Britt says, what makes you think I'm going to be the one that gets kidnapped? And there's just a silent panel of both of them looking at Britt. I thought that was hilarious. Britt does land a few punches, but he's clearly the less skilled of the two, and I like that. But he's not a complete idiot. Before he ever meets Kato, he does do some really cool stuff. At one point, he's in Africa. He does some really cool stuff trying to save his own life. So he's not entirely helpless, but when you put the two of them together, Kato is really the one who is doing more of the awesome action stuff. I like that this kind of works in some real-world history, more specifically in the flashback stuff before these two meet. I like a lot of Kato's backstory, and I saw that there was a graphic novel that is exploring more of his origin stuff before he met Britt, and I'm very interested in that. I don't know if I'll ever read it, but that's something that I'd love to see more of. Honestly, I wish they had made this into the Green Hornet movie instead of the Green Hornet movie that they made, and I haven't seen that movie in many years, but I remember thinking it was okay when I saw it, even though it does set everything in the present day, but this I like so much better than that movie. I'm trying to think if there's really anything about it that would just drive people away. I do feel like maybe there's some stuff here that is a little racially insensitive, and at times I can't decide if that is the creative team trying to be true to the era where people were racially insensitive, or if that's the creators being racially insensitive. I'm leaning towards the first one, that's kind of them trying to make this be true to the era that it is set in. There are some scenes of Kato trying to learn English that seem very like, oh, I don't know about that, but then later he does that in a way to try and fool some of the bad guys so that they can pull one over on the bad guys, and I feel like they're doing that to try and make fun of these racist characters in the story, but it's still a little bit like, whoa, hold on, let's pump the brakes on that. So that might be an issue for you. I didn't have a problem with it because I don't feel like Kato is being played as a joke here. He is as competent as Britt in some places and much more competent than Britt in other places, so they're not making him out to be like the goofball sidekick. You look at some Golden Age superhero comics and there is some absolutely terrifying racist stuff in some of those comics, and this is nowhere near that. The characters, mostly the bad guys, are kind of racist, and some of them very racist, but Britt is not, and his friendship with Kato does feel real. So he's genuinely trying to help him learn English. It's not playing it for laughs, I don't think. I don't think there's anything else here. Like I said, very similar to Batman Begins if you took out the supervillains in Batman Begins, because I don't really know of any supervillains that the Green Hornet fights. I don't think he has a rogues gallery necessarily. So this is like if Batman Begins was just Carmine Falcone and not all these other, Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. But I liked it. If you are like me, I always want to get into these 1930s pulp characters, and then I don't really know where to begin, or I will get something and I'm like, that was really disappointing, I didn't like it. But this, I think, is very solid. Like I said, I've only read like 3 Green Hornet movies. I saw the Green Hornet movie, and then if I count both of these as one story, then I've read 3 Green Hornet stories total. 4 if you count the Green Hornet Shadow Dark Knights crossover, which I had forgotten about that. But I've only read, and then also that Batman 66 crossover. So 5, I guess. I tend not to count the crossovers; those are kind of their own thing. Solo Green Hornet stories. I'm rambling, sorry. Solo Green Hornet stories, I've read 3 stories if you count this as one thing, and then I saw the movie. This is my favorite out of all of that. There's one that I read many years ago that I will probably talk about in a couple weeks, but out of everything that I've read somewhat recently, this is the thing that I like the most. So if you want to get into these 1930s, 1940s pulp style characters, but you don't really know where to go, I would suggest reading Green Hornet Year 1. I liked it. I haven't talked about the art. The coloring in Volume 1 is by Francisco Francavilla, who I am aware of from Scott Snyder's early Batman stuff, the Black Mirror, when Dick Grayson was filling in for Batman, and the coloring reminded me a lot of that. I don't know if it's because I saw Francavilla's name on the cover for Volume 1, but nope, that's it. Here it is, yeah. See his name right there, you probably didn't see that. But I don't know if it's because I saw his name that I was looking through some of this and I thought, yeah, this reminds me of the Jim Gordon Jr. flashback stuff from Black Mirror, is it Black Mirror or is it some... You know what I'm talking about. It's the very first Scott Snyder. It's right before the New 52. But it reminded me of those flashback stories where it's like the entire tone, the hue is like red colors all across the page. It kind of reminded me of that. There will be pages where it's mostly red or a little bit of yellow thrown in, and I like that a lot. I love the coloring here. I like, in Volume 2, it's someone else, someone named like Jose Lopez, I think. I hope that I got that right. Carlos Lopez, and he does pretty good too. He's kind of doing the same style that Francavilla does on the coloring. I almost never talk about coloring, but I like the coloring. I think that lent itself very well to the tone of the story. It worked very well in my opinion. I like the art also. For a few issues reading Volume 1, I actually thought the art was by Francavilla, but Aaron Campbell does a very good art here. A very good art. He does very good art in this book. It's late, sorry. Not that late, but, you know, late-ish. Anyway, I like this book. I hope that you guys... I hope you guys like this video. I hope you will check out Green Hornet Year 1. I want to get into more Green Hornet stuff. I want to dabble around. May not be reading a whole bunch of it here soon, but I do in the next few months want to get into some more of this stuff. So if you guys are familiar with Green Hornet, let me know. Tell me some of the stuff that I should check out. And I will be doing at least 2 more Green Hornet reviews in the next few weeks. I've got another book that I have not read, and then one that I did read many years ago, so expect some more Green Hornet reviews soon. In the meantime, I will see you guys in the future, and have a great rest of the day.